a conversation, we might have missed you by about 20 seconds. So, anyways, apologize for those that lapse. But with that said, so happy to be here as always. This is LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. Today's word is real. I think it's a great word, especially on social media, especially when everybody prides themselves on authenticity. And, I'm so honored to have Harvey Tuck with us again. Harvey's an old standby here. And at the same time is at the cutting edge of new progressive ideas and opportunities that we can all benefit from. And, Renadab's here, first one. And this is what we really depend on is your comments, your thoughts, whatever your top priority uh, that you have that you need answers or support with, feel free to share. Me and Harvey are here to do the best we can for you. And if you can share with us what that is, it'll make it a lot easier for us to achieve that. So with that, Harvey, so great to have you. What's your thoughts on real? I know that's a interesting word.
It sure is. And hello, everyone. It's good to be back. It's been a while. I've missed being part of the show on this side. I've been part on the other side and really been enjoying it. But it's lovely to be back here as well. So great to be back. Yeah, I mean, a great word. I think we've actually discussed this one before. So it's exciting to see, what different slants we get on it before. But I did make it more challenging for a prop.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But no, it is a good word because I think, especially as you said on social media. I mean, I sometimes start with looking up the description of what the word is, and one of the things that came up is genuine, and I think that's a good way of looking at real, especially when you're thinking about people, and especially when you're thinking about who you are on something like this platform, because I think whoever you are comes across. You can't hide it, especially if you're commenting, if you're doing a LinkedIn Live. You are who you are, and I think even though we talk about Chat GTP and bots and all these sorts of different things. There's lots of real people doing real good things, and those automation softwares have their place, and they're a tool like any other tools, and they can be used and in good ways as well. But I think certainly on social media and in real life, using the word, it's about being genuine. And some people if you have to work at that, you're not being genuine. So I think there's so many wonderful people here that are just themselves, and we get to know people for who they are, and and how they come across, and what they value and what value they bring. So yeah, I think being real is being genuine.
Yeah, and staying real is important because it's so easy to get impacted by another influence or the bright shiny object that people will adjust themselves to fit a situation and not get back to themselves. And pretty soon you forget who you are or what you are and why you are. Because if all you're doing is fitting in, and sometimes that means not being real. That sometimes it says not saying what you know you should say and what's important for people to hear, but environment. And the difference is some people walk out and go to where that is in alignment. So I think to be real, you have to be real with yourself first, naturally, but you also have to be real with the life you're living, right? How many people do awful things every day because they need the money, right? Things that they would never do if they had the money. And it could be just mundane, routine. It doesn't have to be walking into a lion's den. It could be just like I was an artist and now look at what I'm doing with myself, but it pays the bills. And I think that's where people have to get real is who are they working for? Why are they working? And to the point, why is everybody even here? Wherever you are, why are you where you are? And does that make you more authentic? Does that make you more attractive from a honorable uh, integrity standpoint? Because really, that's the only thing you have some control over. But once you sacrifice that, it's almost impossible, like I said, to unring a bell,
Mm.
you know? And I think, go ahead, Harvey.
Yeah, I think it resonated with me when you said about the fact that you might not be doing something you love in your life, or you might want to change in your life, and it's being true and real to what you want to do. I think that resonates with what I do on a Sunday, and trying to help people who are not just looking for a new job, but looking perhaps for a new start, or in a toxic environment, or just not fulfilling what it is that they want to do. So I think that, I think that resonated. I think also it's a balance as well, because I think you have to be true to yourself and say what needs to be said when it needs to be said. But there's also a time and a way of saying something while still being true to yourself. I'll often hear people that will say the expression, "I speak my mind." And I think it's an interesting expression. Often those people will come across as perhaps a little rude, or it feels that way or they don't have a filter. But they are being true to themselves. But I think that you can still be true to yourself and still be polite and still time what you need to say when it should be said, or when it would have the best effect for somebody else. You've often said this, that you should praise in public and criticize in private. I think that that's a good example of being true in a situation. If you're a manager, or if it's just a colleague, you're still saying what needs to be said, but you're picking the time, and the time is when, if it's a criticism, you're picking a time where it's just the two of you, and or if it's praise, you're highlighting at that. And I think that's a really good example of being real, being genuine, but also having some empathy for a situation. So I think being real, but have empathy, and and have a filter, but you can still absolutely be who you are.
Yeah, I think you can always add a positive to a positive, but I know there's a lot of bad people who are real to themselves. People who don't always take people into consideration, and their intentions are not always mutual, but they're being real to themselves, or they're being real to their family or to their company, or whatever it is that is of high priority to them. And I think real also has an opportunity to leverage ambition, right? So, how ambitious are you will determine how real you become in a competitive situation, because he's looking for an edge. Hopefully, it's a fair advantage, right? Training more, eating better, whatever it takes to be better. But there's also people who are taking shortcuts, circumventing things. But there was a saying that if you want to get rich in the dark. And what that means is don't involve anybody in anything, right? Because once you do it, everybody knows it. Everybody then duplicates it, because you're the leader, you're setting the standard. And then it filters in many different ways that you can't get the genie back in the bottle. So how many people had reputations, and you could see without, stars that made terrible mistakes, maybe for an hour, maybe under different influences, that are never going to be looked upon the same way, just because of that inability to stay real for long periods of time and be something everybody's going to like and appreciate. Danny has let's go through the comments.
Yeah, definitely. I've been reading.
Really drives the show. Good morning from Renee Deb. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ashif is here. Ashif has some of the best quotes and insights. So happy to have you. Dennis is an everydayer. Glad to be here to hear you too. Glad to be able to share with you, Dennis. Danny's here. Danny, watching on Harvey's feed for a change. And that's so cool, is to expand our realness and amplify it as much as we can to get some of this important information, hopefully, to people who can benefit from it. Danny comes back with, that's the balance, using the "that's just the way I am" defense for being an asshole. Doesn't change the fact that, yeah, you're right, because when people have to prepare you for what they're going to say, the preparation is more than what they have to say. When someone says, I know you're not going to like what I'm about to say, and you have to ask yourself, why are you saying it then? If you know I'm not going to like it. And how do you know? But once you tell me, I'm already thinking, what am I not going to like about it? Right? So some of your realness needs to be in your head and stay there. No one has to know what you're thinking and how you're thinking. And when people have an open filter, it's not that they talk too much as they think too little about what they're talking about. And sometimes they're surprised. But you know what? There are people and families and people that are just obnoxious, but they're real, because they're always going to be that way. There's always going to be someone who does something off color. And at the end of the day, once you know them well enough, you say they're just being real to who they want to be or who they like to be or whatever. That's them. And a lot of people say, take it or leave it. You can't pick and choose. Ashif comes back with, learn your real place in life. Don't overplay your part. Purpose, natural versus adapted styles and behavior. You're so right, because how many people go and follow a sports celebrity or a movie star, right? Or buying all this designer stuff that only the value is the logo when it gets right down to it. And what are they trying to be? Someone else? Do they want to step into Beyonce's world because now they're wearing her perfume? And I think at a certain point, what I learned early is I'm only a fan for people who are fans of mine. You know what I mean? The people root for me, I root for them. So if my kids are playing ball, I wouldn't give that up for any major league sports stadium, right? And I think that's where people have to invest in the people who are real with them and who they can be real with. And it could be this group, it could be friends, family. But how many times you say, if this person would have just been authentic, wouldn't have hid that, wouldn't have made themselves into something they're not, we could have had a good relationship. And, it happens. People change, people move apart, and life changes to people also. And that's really key to stay real, because, when you lose your identity, that's a tough thing to get back. Here we go. Rohit says, change is the only constant. Keep updating and upskilling. Never stop learning. With that being said, hello to everyone. Well, hello, Jatendra. I haven't seen you in a while. Hello from India. Petra's here. Wonderful lady. Doing some fabulous things. That's correct. True realism is the matter of fact and not what they want to hear. Danny comes back with, I root for everyone. Them not rooting for me is a reflection on them, not me. Well, I guess it depends on the stadium and the circumstances. Everybody celebrates winners. Winners celebrate everyone. Yeah, that's the hope. But I've seen some pretty poor winners too, and I've seen, Chevy Chase, when he was at the height of his stardom, was so egotistical that when he would go up to people, he'd say, I'm Chevy Chase and you're not, and that was his way of greeting people. And that's when people say you're just full of it or you're real. I mean, it doesn't, judgment does not have to reflect the authenticity of something, right? You can have a vase that's 2,000 years old, right? But you don't have to like it. You don't have to buy it. And you could actually dislike it for the color or design or whatever, but it's real, it's authentic. And, even on, well, I don't know in England, but on whipped cream here, they always have that big real logo, that's standing out. And even on some products, it says the real thing, or this is genuine. You know, this is not an imitation or a fabrication. So what's your thoughts, Harvey? We've got a great audience.
Oh, we have, and there's some comments I've written down, but I just wanted to say, when you said about Chevy Chase, it made me laugh, but it also made me think about, and it's got nothing to do with this, but I want to share it because it's funny anyway. But apparently Bill Murray has a habit. If you see someone, just a normal person, just eating some food, eating some pizza, he'll come up behind, steal a slice of pizza and say, "No one will ever believe you." And it just reminded me of that, because they wouldn't, would they? If you said, "Oh, Bill Murray came up and stole some of my pizza," he didn't do that. That just made me laugh. But yeah, there's been I think what you said about being real in your head is interesting. It's an interesting thing to explore, and I think that's where sort of the filters come in, and where you put some thought into it first. Putting some thought into what you say or how you act is not being not real. You know, that's just, you know, having the best value out of what you say, or saying it in a way where who you're talking to will get good value from it. And if you just stick with one path, doing things always the same way, then people aren't necessarily going to get the best value from it, but you can still be you. I think the other thing is, who said about change? I'm trying to see. Somebody said, I've lost my bit of paper now, but I think Ashif said it, but he was saying about changing, and that you can change. And I think that's a really good point, because you can be true to who you are, but who you are can change. So, you know, your character and your personality and is a sort of a great big mixed bag of things that I think it's constantly jumbling around, and different people bring out different parts of who is truly you. You know, and I've said this before, but my wife always brings out the fun side of me, the silly side of me. You know, I always say she brings out the best of me, but different people bring out different parts of who you are. And I think your experiences in life and what you do shape who that is. So it's a great big sort of mixed up bag of things. What else was I going to say? I quite like what Shiv said, to find your real place in life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are lucky when they've found their real place in life. I think it's a hard one to get to the position where you found your calling or your meaning, or, you know, I think there are a few people that are truly there. But I think it's a great thing to have in your mind, because if you're searching for your place in life, I think it'll take you down some interesting roads. I'm just having a look at the comments there. Well, that's a good one. Ashif again said, "I am real, I am different." I like that. Even though he's put a laughy face, I like that one. Because I think I've always been a bit like that. So especially at school, you know, when you think back to school, especially secondary school, actually, what's that called in America? High school?
Yeah.
Yeah. when you think back to that, so you're a bit older, and you've got this sort of challenge of trying to be you, but trying to fit in. You know, anybody who sticks out, you know, tends to be the sort of the butt of a few jokes, as I was when I was young. But it taught me a lot of things. You know, I think it taught me, I think I use sense of humor as a defense mechanism, but I think it also taught me to be strong about who I am, because even at that age, being who I was and being different, in what I did, how I acted, that sort of thing, and getting the Mickey taken out of me a little bit, it kind of made me stronger to be who I wanted to be and who I was. But it probably also gave me some resilience, which added to my mixed bag of characters. And partly, everything that happens to you makes you who you are today, doesn't it? What happened yesterday is part of who you are today. And, what happens next week or tomorrow is part of who you're going to be. But that's the exciting bit, because you don't know that bit.
Well, that's so interesting. And to Danny's comment, which I have a story to go with that, Muhammad Ali was the same, Michael Jordan was the same. It shows the power of a charismatic relationship that can be just as peacocking about being amazing, but we celebrate some of that bravado and not others. Well, that's fascinating. And I'll tell you my Muhammad Ali story. And I was able to be face to face with him.
Who won the fight?
He wasn't in it. Actually, I was in Las Vegas, and it was a Mike Tyson fight. So this goes back probably in the 90s, right? About 30 years ago. And I made a bet, and the fight was at the Las Vegas Hilton. So I decided I'll go to a sports bar, and watch the fight on TV, even though the fight was taking place in the arena there. So, I get there, and all of a sudden there's this red carpet, and all these celebrities are coming to the fight, because a fight like that is like the biggest thing in Vegas for that night. So you got movie stars, recording stars, and all of a sudden Muhammad Ali comes in, and you can hear the energy, and people are screaming, Ali, Ali, Ali. And he's walking, and all of a sudden this boy next to me in a wheelchair, with must have been his parents behind him, Muhammad Ali saw him and broke free from the crowd. He had a couple guys with him, and leaned down and started talking, whispering, for it seemed like an hour. It must have been like 30 seconds. And the parents were crying. The boy was emotional. And I thought to myself, this guy is a champ. And what it told me is, in real life, that's what you see, not what you hear through the media, when you actually experience people's kindness. And some of these people do so much anonymously. But he didn't have to do that. That wasn't scripted. And I thought to myself, look at what he did, because he was real in the moment. He looked at a young kid in a wheelchair and didn't see the flash bulbs and the media and everybody yelling at him. And also, he's a guy who stood up for his beliefs, right? And sacrificed 3-4 years of his career for something he believed in. So I think when you're real, it also lends itself to inspiration. Right? Hey, that person did something heroic, so brave. I could never have thought of doing that. But then a little that rubs off on you, because when do you then, without being on the red carpet, identify somebody who could use a kind word? And how long does it take? A minute or two? Meanwhile, change the parents' lives, change the boy's life, change everybody in that circle. So maybe that was the best thing for everybody, even though it was just an everyday situation. But when people at the top reach down to help people wherever they're at, it makes a difference, and that's what everybody should be doing, is making a difference by being real to other people. And hopefully they model that. And everybody gets more honest, because I think that's what everybody needs, especially with AI and everything else, is what's real, what isn't. There used to be a commercial for when they had cassette tapes, Memorex. And it would always be, is it real or is it Memorex? Because, it was the tape versus the actual performance. I guess they wanted to show that it mirrored that. As she says, I'm real, I'm different. Petra says, I'm outspoken aloud because my clients finally understand how real their situation is. And sometimes you just got to get real with people. And sometimes people got to get real with you. Sometimes you go to a dentist and he just or she has to say, hey, this is what's going on. I got to be straightforward. You got to take care of this, or at least understand what you're dealing with. And I think it's kind of a wake up call, getting real with people. Sometimes you just say, I've been noticing this and I don't want to get involved, or I didn't understand it. But hey, now that I understand what's going on, I gotta be upfront with you. I just got to tell you the way I know it is versus here's what I think it is. Linda comes back, woo, glad I made it. Life took me to an area with little sick, bringing us back to real moments, talking face to face. Hello, everyone. Have a wonderful Wednesday. And that's part of being real, is living up to your true self. What do you aspire to be? What have you worked hard to demonstrate for the people around you? And how important is that to maintain? I've made decisions in my life that were not the best in any way financial decisions. I walked away from all kinds of things, but I knew who was watching what I was doing. And wondering when the time came when there was a big enough decision, would you stand in your realness? You see something interesting, Harvey?
I did, yeah. I went forward like that, didn't I?
maybe I should
last.
Give you a cup of tea. You got so close.
I quite like what Petra said. My belief is that being real can be a place of darkness for some, but it's really not. And I think that resonates with me a little. Maybe not darkness, but certainly a place to be brave, and sometimes a place that's difficult. I'll give it an example, and I think I've said this before, but I overheard a conversation on a train with somebody who had lost their job, and they were a long way away from me, and the train was full. And I think you said, as of a moment, sometimes, when you told the Muhammad Ali story, it was of a moment, right? Now, of that moment, I just made that decision to go and offer that person some help. And I think sometimes, I'm getting better at it, because I used to over-consider and overthink everything, the consequences of things. And I go a lot more with my gut these days. So, I'll take these risks and be a little bit more brave. But sometimes you'll do something, you'll be brave, and that's why it resonates with me. And it won't be the right thing to do at all. It goes completely wrong, and you've made a total mistake in being brave and in being you. And that's okay too, as well. So it's okay to be real, to be you, to be brave, to say or do something that you think is the right thing at the time, and it turns out not to be. That's still okay. I just wrote down a few things as well. Some of what we were saying, I've recently watched a documentary, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, but on Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that was a really interesting documentary.
Yeah, I watched that. It was a 3-parter, right?
Yeah, you did see it. Yeah. And I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but it was really interesting because he was absolutely true to whatever goals he had. A master of visualization in terms of this is what he wants to achieve. But probably as he went along, he was so focused on achieving those things that maybe perhaps a little blinkered. And I think he got caught out every now and again because he absolutely could see what the vision that he had. And if it didn't quite go his way, I think he got quite easily hurt and quite easily upset by it not quite going the right way. So I think but he was totally being true and being real to all of these visions that he had. And it's a fascinating documentary to watch as well, about his life. But I think what also you said, Don, about these moments of kindness, and I think, I can't remember who said it to me about that. And this was probably predating social media, but it was, you should watch the news, don't shy away from what is reality. I remember someone telling me this. And I said, I don't think it does represent, and I still don't think it represents reality in any way, because when you look at what happens in the world, 99.9% of it is normal, everyday, mundane things that happen. But there's also millions and millions of kindness, just someone putting their hand on someone's shoulder or chatting to somebody that, that needs you to reach out. And they're never in the news, these little moments. Normally, often they're not even said to anybody. But there are thousands, if not millions, of these little moments that just make a difference to one person. It brings me back to what I love to do here, is to make a difference to somebody else, even if that's one person. And what I do on a Sunday is about making a difference to someone. And I often say, it's just one connection that could change your life. I absolutely believe that. It's completely the reality. I think it's those little moments that you need to celebrate, those little real moments. All you've got to do is keep your eyes open for them. You see them all the time, just lovely little acts of kindness, and they're real moments. I love it when you're if anyone ever goes to an airport, right, and you're coming out of the departure gate, just take a moment, have a coffee, and just look at the people arriving and the people greeting those people. It's a collection of wonderful little moments. I'll often just have a cup of coffee and watch those moments, because just, people haven't seen their loved ones for a long time, and they're lovely little real moments. So it's a good place to see them.
Well, I think in addition to that, and every word we talk about, every activity we discuss, it's about measurement, right? To have a measured approach. And sometimes you don't got to go in with guns blazing, right? So, if you want to be brave, even the bravest people check out their situation and conditions, right? Even the bravest pilot will look at the weather or the weather patterns, or, anybody going into some sort of challenge needs to be prepared. So I think that's so important, to being real. And, it's a daily thing. It's not something you can take for granted. And there's accommodations that need to be made. So let's go through some of these comments. Characterize people by their actions. You will never be fooled by their words. That's so true.
I just wrote that one down, Chief. I just wrote that down on my paper.
Yeah, there's a saying, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? And it's your eyes and what you experience, not what someone tells you. To your point with the news, what I was thinking when you're saying that, it can't be objective if you have sponsors, right? If you're promoting products, you're going to have to promote to the audience that product needs. Petra says, thank you, Harvey. A place of uncertainty and uncomfortable. One, you learn how to keep it real. You're being real. When you're proud of yourself, you're being true to yourself, and your ideals or whatever it is. Ashif says, be gold, not gold plated. That makes sense. It's what's completely through and through, not what's on the surface. Here we go with, it's Fergan. Don't quite understand.
I could interject there, only because I could pretend that I knew that, but it's in the comments.
Okay, here's
there you go.
The pure and sincere joy in another person's accomplishments or experiences. Well, you can live through others till you can live through yourself too, right? So you can enjoy someone else's adventure or lesson to be learned. And, just like that Muhammad Ali story, it keeps being told to more and more people because it's real, and it's not very often. I would have never probably remembered a guy was in the place if he wouldn't have done what he did, because there was 40 other celebrities I didn't remember. So it was what he did, not who he was or how he showed up. And too many people are into what did they wear, what do they drive, where do they live, and none of that has nothing to do with them. The next day they could have lost all their money in the stock market, and they're 1 week away from the street. So everybody's got to realize that, in America, I think they say 70% of the people are one paycheck from being on the street. That's how much savings they have. That's how much reserve. And if something came up from out of the blue without backup, it doesn't matter, And I think that's where humility and modesty and support for others comes in. Petra says, some spend more time for not being real instead of that wasted time should be invested into being you real. I promise you gain time. And, everything gets measured in the end by the happiness quotient, right? Are you happy with all the stuff you have and the life you're leading? And if you look at some of the greatest celebrities, they're dealing with most of the most severe mental and physical challenges by having to maintain that persona. Someone who plays Indiana Jones is just playing it, but to other people, they are it, right? And, Harrison Ford probably had to live his whole life with people yelling out Indy or something like that.
I know it feels. I get it. I get it all the time now.
Ann Bambola's here. Thank you so much, Ann Bambola, for keep coming back. We do have a great group of people, Harvey, that really care and share, and it makes it gratifying for us to be part of it because we all polish each other in so many different ways.
Definitely. I think I like what Danny said, and I'm going to remember that word for Fergun. Fergun, he's even said how to pronounce it there, but that's a word that I remember because I think even when you celebrate your own victories and things for yourself, it is joyous to see the victories in others, and it's always going to be a part of my life to enjoy other people's successes. If you surround yourself with people that are successful and enjoying their life and you're celebrating that success with them, it can only be a good thing. And I go back to what Ashif said there, by judging people by their actions, not by their words, and we have a word of the day and we talk a lot about a word, but it's still what we all do that has a deep and meaningful impact. Because what you do, no one can be fooled by that. Exactly what Ashif's saying here, but everyone can. Words are really powerful, aren't they? And everyone can tell a story, and it can feel very real. But what you actually do is, that's where who you are comes across.
Yeah, and I think that's so true because in today's world, especially social media, and especially LinkedIn, there's a lot of people trying to fool a lot of people. There's people who know more than other people know, and they know it, and they take advantage of it. And people offer friendship without really being too friendly, and how many times do people come in to something and the people who brought them in are now looking for more people instead of working with the people they have, and I think that's key, is to be real. You got to stay as undiluted as you can, because once you get diluted, naturally there's less of you, and what diluted you becomes part of you. And I think that's so important with staying real, is staying honorable, but also staying on mission, on purpose, because everything should fit into your destination, right? If you're heading on a trip for 400 miles and you know where you're going, along the way, you don't say, well, hey, let's take a side trip for a day over here, unless you're going to adjust your schedule, because it doesn't fit. And what was real for you in your 20s became unreal in your 30s, right? How many people at 50 say, stop acting like you're a teenager? That ship has sailed. It looks ridiculous. Start acting your age, or start being real already, and some people are considered daydreamers, because they're not grasping what other people are grasping, and maybe they're elevated, just because they're different, just because they take a different course and live life a different way, you should honor that, and I think that's where diversity comes in, and that's where everybody can learn from each other. Petra says, thank you, Harvey, a place, okay, but once you learn how it could be real, I think if we get down here, we get Petra said, joy of genuine life. Aharon says, hi down, Harvey, we'll watch soon. Back to Petra, being unrealistic, it will pile up only so much, but it will tumble over one day that you will have to finally face the realistic. Or maybe you lived a lie all your life and no one ever discovered it. Some people could sneak through. There's been great imposters over the years that fool people all the time. What was it, P.T. Barnum? You could fool somebody some of the time, but you can't fool everybody all the time, or something like that. And he was the quintessential unreal person. He was the one bringing in all the sideshows and all the exotic stuff from all the world. And I think there's something to seeing different in different people that's enjoyable. And I think to Harvey's point, I spent a lot of time at the Bellagio because I spent a lot of time at trade shows and conferences in Las Vegas. And my son went to UNLV for 5 years, so I was able to get out there quite often. And me and Ann would just get an ice cream, a really nice ice cream, get a little bit of fruit, and we'd pick a nice couch. And all we'd look at was all these people coming and going, and all these from all over the world. I mean, it's a destination, and the clothes, the conversations. I mean, it was almost like you had a sneak peek of a whole group of international people who are parading, in a sense, in front of you. And when you left there, it's like, wow, I saw stuff just now, and interactions and styles. I mean, and that's gratifying, is to live vicariously through other people's reality. I guess that's why reality shows are so popular, right? Is because it's just like this show. There's no script. It's totally real, and it goes wherever it seems it needs or should go. And I think a life less restricted, when you truly have freedom, I think you can be real, or when you're real, you can be free. And until you have that, you're having somewhat of a disconnection. What's your thoughts, Harvey?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. When you were talking about being at the Bellagio, it made me think of Ocean's 11 then. And I've just now pictured you in Ocean's 11. You robbed it, though, did you?
I wish they would have put me in the movie.
But yeah, I agree with what you said about the sort of you were watching all the people go by, and the different sort of different characters that you see, all being real to themselves and all very different. And also, I think I agree with you about why reality shows are popular. I think especially the early ones, when they first started, it really was about putting just some people together and see what happens. What they absolutely do now, and why they're not as good, is they will instigate situations to create a reaction, but that's not real, and that's why I don't think they're as good as they were. But when it was just watch some people just getting to know each other and talking to them, if they fall out they do, if they get on they do, it was much more interesting, because that's exactly it. You were watching reality, whereas now it's much more staged. But what's the time?
Oh, we got a few minutes, 44 minutes into it.
It's prop time. That's what time it is.
Oh, okay, cool.
I got you, didn't I? And I did struggle this time, because, as I say, last time we had the same word. So was I running out of props? Never run out of props. And I had to go in the loft for this prop. So people have got to appreciate this one. So this is what it is.
Oh, a reel, huh?
It's a reel from a proper old-fashioned reel-to-reel projector. And one of the reasons that I picked it is because I've got a few old films of family, particularly my dad, who passed away many years ago. And it reminds me of the fact that there's memories there. And also, it's old fashioned, this. It can't be faked. It can't be lost or deleted. It's there, and you can feel it. And when I watch those old films on there, it brings back very real memories. And I think even film and television, even though some of it isn't based on real events, it creates real emotions. And if you go to the cinema or if you go to a show, you have a real experience. So yeah, my prop today is a reel.
Well, that's great. I mean, and that's a takeoff on two words, actually, the real and the real, with an extra E and a less of an A. But yeah, I think reflection has a lot to do with real, and by reviewing, reflecting, in integrating more than yourself in who you are to be real. Sometimes a habit makes you real. Whatever you do, meditation or religion or whatever it is, belief can make you feel more aligned, more real, more genuine. And I think too is everybody should grant themselves some grace where it doesn't happen overnight. Because if you look at your early life, you're a factor of your environment and your family. And sometimes you got to spend so many years unlearning what you learned because now it doesn't work, or you test it and maybe that worked for somebody else, or the time and place or person made sense for them, but you adopting it may not have been an honorable thing to align with yourself. So I think at a certain age, you say, hey, that doesn't serve me anymore. Or, I'm not into eating 6 scoops of ice cream when I sit down anymore. I've kind of outgrown that. And your tastes change, right? The cars you drove in your 20s would not be the car you'd buy today, right? And most times you look at economy or how many bags can I put in it? Or is it dependable versus does it make a lot of noise, and is it fast, and is it going to impress?
I've got to admit, I have to stop you there because I am still somewhere in between the two on cars.
I remember people used to put a hole in their muffler just to make it sound as if.
Yeah, I did that when I was young as well. But yes, I have to admit now when I look at a car, I think, is it going to be comfortable? Whereas, I didn't used to think that. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's kind of funny you say that because, we graduated to, at one time, pretty big SUVs. And my son bought a small BMW, like a 3 something. And just getting into it, I mean, when you're used to a comfy seat rising above everything, and then you slide your legs forward. I mean, it's a cool feeling when you're driving it, right? Because you really feel what's going on. But hey, that's not for someone who might have some knee issues. When you're 22, it doesn't really matter when you get up to a different age. So I think there's a point where you got to be real with yourself. So how many people do some artificial stuff, whether it's plastic surgery or whatever, and you say they were so much better when they were who they were instead of trying to be somebody that they're not. And only a good friend will tell you, hey, Harvey or Don, forget about what you're doing. It's not working. It's not real. No one believes that stuff. And maybe you got to start thinking about it. Petra says realism will not be painful. It is what it is. I mean, you can say what you want, believe what you want, but it all comes down to what it is. Sheaf says, I like Harvey talk. Memories are real on or from a reel. And I think that's the thing about old movies. There was something to setting up the projector and closing the drapes and putting some screen or whatever on, and the crackety crack of the film, and all that stuff. But you know,
I've got to interject, sorry, because Linda said something that's really similar and completely agree with it. And I wish I'd said that when I put up my prop. I wanted to say just that, but but it was very cool. What she said there is that, and I remember this, and you were just about to say that the movie would stop. Sometimes, sometimes something would go wrong, and you'd wait until someone would put the film back in. And she said that the life also stops, starts, and restarts. And I think that's brilliant. That's the joy of this. That's the joy of this show. It's absolutely the joy of this show, because, I never think about what I'm going to say, even with the prop. But someone there, Linda, you've just said something that's so valuable. Yeah, I wish I'd said that.
When it just shows you everybody could put something together with and for somebody to make it more real for everybody.
Exactly.
Because if it was just me and you, it'd be me and you, and it'd be kind of linear. And after a while,
exactly what I mean. That's what's so wonderful about the show. It's everybody who's driving the conversation, and I get so much value, and it's so much good fun. So it's fantastic. I also like what Petra said there. Plant the seed of being real, and you will see a garden of roses instead of walking on the mud. I think we often use gardens, I think, as analogies here, but I think that's a really good one. Yeah, I like that. I'll remember that.
Well, I think it's to your earlier point, Harvey, is visualization. Seeing things in pictures and not just words. And seeing things for yourself, right? Someone will say, I see some on the horizon, and you'll say, well, let me take a look. Give me the binoculars, right? And pretty soon you might say, no, that's just a bird. That's nothing to worry about, or whatever. And sharing views and visions. And I think that's basically what Linda was saying, and what you were saying is someone who films something, and I take pictures in my mind. I'll be in a special moment that I know is once in a lifetime or will never repeat itself. And I'll spend time focusing so I can gain and engrave as much of that, because I can revisit it. This is a picture I want to always remember, where someone graduates high school or college, and, the family's together taking that picture. And what it took to get there. Who the person is, what it means to them, and what it means to the family, right? And those things don't happen often, but those are the celebration in the moment, not the afterwards we're going to dinner and having a cake. It's like, let's celebrate.
You never know that these things are going to happen, and I think also, and it comes back a little bit to film. Because you see so many people enjoying a moment, but filming the moment, and it's over filmed now. And what they sometimes forget, you see people at an amazing event, and they've all got their phones up like this, filming it, right? But they're forgetting to enjoy that moment, to be real and enjoy that moment, and take the photo up here, because it stays up there, and. I've got to share a story, because I was talking to my son about memories and things he'll remember. And I know we're getting a bit close to the end, but it is a quick story.
Sure.
And so a friend of mine had a jet ski, and he invited me and my son to have a go on the jet ski. I've driven them a few times, and my son was very excited about it. And we went out on the jet ski, and we were sort of whizzing about. And this jet ski was only a 2-man jet ski. So when it goes slow, it's not very stable. It's fine when you're whizzing around. The Coast Guard, or the Sea Police, as I called them, pulled us over and said that that we were going too fast or something like that. And I kept saying to them, I can't slow down. It's not stable. And they went, slow down, slow down. So I slowed down, and immediately when I stopped, it flipped upside down and flipped my son and I off the jet ski. He couldn't get back on. I had to turn it back up the right way in the sea, and then he had to get a lift back to the beach from the sea police. But you know what? I said to him, I said, "Would you ever go on a jet ski with me again?" He said, "Oh, absolutely, Dad." He said, "I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life, that story." So,
Well, those are the real moments, when you look at, you can look at back at your life, like you look at old film, because in a way it is. And remember the day you met someone, the day you got married, the day you had your child, the day you had your big promotion, the day of this. And it's a cascade of accomplishments and honors, but it took time, it took work, and it didn't happen every day, but it still happened. And if you can condense that into your own photo album that you bring out, because that changes your whole mind. If you take out an old photo album, I don't care what your mood is, and you start looking at Uncle Joe and Aunt Sally and this and that, and you start seeing things on the table like a cake that was their specialty, it brings you around to where you came from and who you came from, and who you associated with. And you always want to go back to childhood in a way, to innocence. You want to go back when you didn't have to worry about anything but who did you want to play with today and what did you want to do. You didn't have to worry about making the mortgage or covering school expenses or something like that. And you can. You don't have to give up the past to enjoy the future. You just can't let the past haunt the future. But if you've got special mementos or charms, or even I know on my wall, I've got pictures of people that I carry with them. And sometimes when I open my wallet, I see them, and they're always there. And knowing someone's always there for you can help you make yourself real, because it takes courage. And if someone says, "Hey, that's who you should be. That's who you were meant to be, and you should go after it, and I'll always support you." I know people say, "I always love you. I may not like you at certain times, but you'll never be without my love for you." And that's enough to know that even if people stop caring about themselves, there's other people who really do care about them in a real way. And there's no question about it. And I think having a few friends who are real, having a few family members who are real, and sometimes it's hard to be real, but you're always better off getting in front than covering behind. Hey, I got to tell you something happened. You're going to find out anyways, but I want it to come from me and I want to get it out now. Right. And people right there would say, "Well, thank you. I don't know what you're about to tell me. Maybe it's not something I want to hear, but you're really being straight with me, and I'll honor that." And then hopefully that says, "Well, now you should get straight with me every so often," because it does come down to trust. How come you're not real with me? Well, the way every time I get real with you, I hear this, and I don't want that anymore. So real without no judgment and acceptance can go a long way. What I'm finding about these comments, it's more pertinent. It's more into the discussion. I think there were a lot of people who are here for whatever reasons, but weren't really involved. And this is great. Renata says, "Real is a very relative term, and one should try to understand the difference between reality and dreams. Today's discussion is real and is providing value to many people at the same time, whereas in a dream, it's only providing dream value to the." You're so right, because Harvey sharing his Skidoo adventure, me, my Muhammad Ali encounter, those are genuine. Those really happened. And it happened the way we said it did. We didn't embellish it. I didn't say there was 4 more heavyweight champs there. And the thing was about that story is it was totally not about me. Someone could said the night I shook hands with Muhammad Ali, "Wow, you and Muhammad Ali." No, I stood next to a child in a wheelchair who Muhammad Ali went out of his way to do something to help that person. I was just a bystander. Right. And that's what I was happy to be, because the 2 players were those 2. But I knew it was real, and I knew someone had to believe that deep in their soul, that they got tired of the hurrahs and went to the people who were the people they used to be, people who didn't get a fair chance, or wasn't accepted or respected. And I think that makes a difference. Here we go with Petra. Now your show should be called Realism with Donald. Well, it's just a word today, but it just shows you real turns into realism, reality, all these other things that have offshoots. And it really does kind of tell yourself, hey, I should get a little more real today. I should get more genuine. What is it I really want to do? What is I really want to say that for some reason I've been holding back? And is this the day to do it? And I think that's the best of this program is, what are you going to do from it? If it's just, I learned a lot, I got motivated, that's wonderful. And that's probably a better hour than you might have spent somewhere else. But to get full benefit and to get the whole real element of it is to apply it and do it in a kind way. Most people say, well, I'm going to get real. I'm going to insult someone. I'm going to make someone feel comfortable because I'm going to tell them what I'm thinking. No, that's not what you do. Thinking is for you. Talking is for them. And how people say, and Harvey's right. You can say one word in a sentence and blow whatever it is you're talking about if you demean somebody or disrespect somebody, and why? Are you looking to collaborate? You're looking to find alignment, or you're building more walls and divisions? And, everybody has 24 hours. Of course, it's beautiful. Ashif says, and we're love who see in the mirror. Michael Jackson had that song, The Man in the Mirror, right? And it was all about helping people in a sense.
Sorry, I've got to say something. That's just reminded me about something that's really funny. I was driving along Hastings Seafront yesterday and just talking of Michael Jackson, and there was a man standing outside a local theatre, and he was doing all of the Michael Jackson moves on his own in the rain. It just now, if that's not being true or real to himself, I don't know. I'd forgotten about that. That was funny. Oh, I like what Chief said here as well. This is good.
Yeah, and what this is real thought-provoking for all of us, food for thought from everybody else. And it makes you come inside and then go outside with a better outside than you would have without taking measure of your inside and the people around you. And, isn't it nice when you can light everybody up whenever possible by your presence, by your generosity of spirit, but also being real with them? Most people say, I don't need help. I just need somebody to be honest with me. For every dark night, there's a brighter day, another one for you. Yeah, you got to believe in tomorrow. I think that's what it comes down to. To be real, you got to see a tomorrow that's better than today based on what you do today. And you can create your reality and your realism. Thank God for my German blood relatives. They taught me how important it is to face the facts of reality. Everybody's standing on someone else's shoulders right now, right? If it wasn't for your parents, you wouldn't be where you are today. If it wasn't for some advice someone gave you along the way, it wouldn't have pivoted you or redirected you. So look to know that there's another person you have yet to meet out there that could be life-changing. There's information you have yet to learn. If everybody was complete and filled up, then hey, it is what it is. You got what you got. That's the way it is. But if everybody's a work in progress and everybody's looking to improve, to me, that's getting real, because real is not a destination. It's a direction. It's a movement, because you could be real in 1 second and be totally unreal the next second if you choose. And it's hard. It's discipline. Sometimes I don't want to be me. I want to be someone else, or I want to act like someone else. But for how long, and what's that going to do? So anyways, a lot of complexity as well as simplicity to real. I want to thank everybody so much. It's been a very, very energizing, invigorating discussion and a sharing of views. And like I say, what I love about the audience today is people were actually interacting with the show, with me and Harvey, with the word. And I see so many shows where you have 82 people who just show up, hi, hello, and even wonder if they really spend any more time than just showing up and saying something to, it's weird. We don't want to go there. But anyways, with that said, thank you, Harvey. You're always great. You never disappoint us, whether it's props or stories or insights. And I know it makes me and Harvey so much better for having such a wonderful audience. So thank you again. Have a beautiful day. We'll be back here tomorrow again, like always, and be real.